Yes, it is. Hey there, everybody. This is Kenny and
Kenny Squared.
with the Sports on the Positive Tip Podcast, special All-Star edition. And so, Kenny, how you doing? How's things out there in the Midwest? It's good to be back on Long Island.
Yeah, you got back so quickly. But it's good. It's been raining all weekend. A couple of Indians games got postponed, so that's never fun. But
no. Yeah, I mean the Mets have played more doubleheaders than they played probably in the last 5 years. Hey, so we're going to talk about the only All-Star game that's still kind of special, and that's the baseball All-Star game, which happens tomorrow night. And so that's kind of our special podcast, but we got to take a couple of minutes since it's the end of the first half of the season, and what a crazy weekend for both teams, but especially the Yankees. So I want to get your grades on the Yankees, and then we could talk Bucks and Suns, which I said on Saturday I thought it might be a series here, and the Bucks lived up to it, and so we'll see what happens with that. But let's start real quick with the Yankees and Astros. And so what were your overall thoughts on what was a crazy weekend of baseball in Houston?
yeah, so I'll start out with I love the back and forth with the whole jersey pulling. I don't know how much of that you saw.
I saw it.
But like it seems like the Yankees for the first time in a while have a little bit of mojo. Like Judge kind of trolling Altuve with the jersey. And of course, like they clap back and Altuve had the best celebration all year. But I think it is very good that like the Yankees took this and they started out shutting out the Astros 5-0 in the first two games combined. I'm going to even go as far as to say Garrett Cole had his best game as a Yankee. Not only just because he went complete game shutout in a 1-0 game, but I loved I've never seen him that fired up on the mound than in the ninth inning when Aaron Boone comes out with 2 outs and he's like, hey, you got this? And he's like, basically, you better get off this mound and finishing this. Yeah. And sure enough, he threw 3 straight strikes, game over. And I think that's been like kind of the thing that's been missing. But also, it seems like we're still back at the 2021 Yankees. Every single time things are looking really good, every single time they're building some momentum, you get a really bad dud of a game. Like a couple weeks ago against the Angels, like they're scoring a bunch of runs. They're up 7-2 against Ohtani, knock him out in the first inning. And then just like that, they blow the game. Same thing happened. Like I wouldn't have been that mad if they lost. But they were up 7-2 in the ninth inning, and Chad Green, who's supposed to be the solution, not the problem, gave up 6 runs. And of course, the last person in the world that I'd want to give up a walk-off home run to is Jose Altuve. Yeah. I sent the Yankees home several times, and I beat Aaron Judge MVP race, even though I probably shouldn't have. So it's a momentum swinging week a little bit, but at the same time, it just leaves a bad taste in your mouth. And now you got to wait 3 days before you play again. So overall in the season, I would probably give the Yankees like a C or a C minus. I think one of the biggest highlights and something that people aren't really talking about is that the Yankees have stayed really healthy this year. Aaron Judge, I'll pull up his numbers here, but I think it really shows like he's a guy that if he's healthy and if he's playing, he's going to give you good numbers. I don't think they're as good as his Rookie of the Year, runner-up MVP season, but I think it's pretty close. Let's see here. He's batting .282 with 21 home runs, 47 RBI. So you're going to love that. 21 home runs, 47 RBI. So let's just say double it, he'd have 42 home runs and like 94 RBIs over the season. 42 home runs would be nice. I know how you feel about having 40 home runs and not 100, but I think that also goes to show the Yankees offense is solo home runs left and right. But like, I think in general, these guys have stayed healthy. Stanton has stayed on the field. Judge has stayed on the field. Gary Sanchez has turned it around. Garrett Cole might be past the sticky stuff issues. We'll see. But this team still has a long ways to go. They're still in fourth place, which they have a really tough division. And really, I think what's going to make or break this team is the first week and a half out of the All-Star break, where I have a 4-game series against the Red Sox, 2 against the Phillies, and then 4 against the Red Sox. And then you go to Tampa Bay. So I think we'll know contender or pretender by the end of July with this team.
I want to go back to Aaron Judge, and he turned out to be one of my favorite players of all time, and Curtis Granderson. But he had a lot of years like that. He never hit 40 with the Mets, but he had a couple of seasons with the Mets where he had 29 homers and 59 RBIs. I'm like, that's hard to do. But I think he'll get more RBIs in the second half. He'll get to 100. But let me ask you about Garrett Cole. It was an amazing, amazing performance. What do you think it was? Was it him being back in Houston? Was it, now living up to the ace? Because the ace does have to win a game like that. 130 pitches, though, that's a lot. So 2 questions. What was it that got into him? And number 2, do you think that 130 pitches is going to affect him in his next start?
I think what really got into him was being back in Houston, and I think kind of showing the Astros. Oh, did you lose me again?
I lost your audio again. So what do you think? Is that going to affect his next start?
All right.
And what got into him, man?
I think what got into him is just like being back in Houston, kind of showing Houston what they're missing. Because they have Zach Greinke, and obviously Verlander is recovering from Tommy John, so they have an ace, but I think he's like kind of there showing like, hey, this is what you could have had. I think that coming back to that whole Houston roots where he really became an ace, I think is really big for him. And as far as his next start goes, I'm not too worried about it. Yes, it's the highest that any pitcher has thrown this year, but also we're talking the All-Star break. I can see Boone not starting him for a few days afterwards. So maybe instead of starting him 5 days, which would be Thursday, maybe having him go Saturday or Sunday. Matt Blake and Aaron Boone have both asked Cash not to have him pitch in the All-Star game. So while he's going to be attending, he's probably not going to make an appearance, which I think is fine anyway. So I think because it was the break is one of the main reasons why he even came out for the 9th inning, to be honest.
Yeah, it was disappointing they lost that next game, but I do think they still have some momentum because they were, they led most of that game, right? Till the 9th inning. I went to run an errand, and then I got your text. I turned the TV off. It was 7-2. I got your text. I'm like, what? But it's just sometimes timing is bad. Every team is going to have a game like that during the year, where somebody comes back on them. The Mets was up 5-0, lost 6-5. So, it was just the timing because they had that momentum going, and they got a game like that. So they'll shake it off. I think they'll be tough here in the second half. We'll see. I'll give you my Met grade real quick. I would say like a B-. The Met pitching and bullpen have been just overall outstanding. I don't know how they've done it, but DeGrom, Walker, Stroman have been spectacular. Diaz, even though he blew the save on Sunday, he's been overall great. He's blown 2 saves. That's it. The rest of that bullpen has been really good. It's hard to grade the hitting. Conforto, Lindor, McNeil are the three keys. I know J.D. Davis is coming back. The bench has been great, but if those guys don't hit, that lead that the Mets have, which is I think only 4 games, will easily go away. But I mean, they've been in first place for a long time, so I gotta give them a lot of credit. I think Rojas has done a really good job in holding them together with all these injuries. So looking forward to their second half. I think that if these guys get hot, they may run away and hide with this division, or at least they'll maintain a good 4 to 5 game lead. All right, let's shift gears real quick because I want to get to the All-Star game, the NBA Finals. I did say that the other day that I thought the Bucks would make it a series, and Phoenix really never got into that game last night. It looks like they made a run in the third quarter, but towards the end of the third quarter, the Bucks Giannis looks pretty hungry. What were your thoughts on Game 3?
Yeah, I'm gonna say first of all, you called it. Having the home crowd there and really just kind of giving them a kind of reset a little bit, I think has really helped them. And I agree. Giannis looks like he's a man on a mission. I'd have to look this up. He has now back 40-point games. Kobe only had one 40-point game, and he had, I believe it was 37 different NBA final games. Aside from LeBron, I think Giannis is the only last 15 years to have multiple point games in an NBA Finals. And I'm not even just talking one specific series. I'm talking about overall. And we're talking about like Steph Curry, Klay Thompson had several opportunities, had a lot of opportunities there. Obviously, LeBron's done a great job there. But even like random guys, like I think of like J.R. Smith, who will randomly drop 40. He didn't do it twice. So I think what Giannis is doing is not looked at with the highest regard, but I think maybe he's trying to say like, hey, a few years ago, people were possibly talking about me being the best player in the league. Maybe we're kind of back there a little bit. I'm not ready to call the series yet either way. I do think still coming down 0-2 is a really hard deficit, especially since Phoenix still has protected their home court. Like in any 7-game series, I think Game 4 is going to be really crucial. If the Suns end up pulling it out, then 3-1 isn't impossible. Ask Cleveland, but it'd be down 3-1 and heading to Phoenix.
Yeah. I agree with everything you said. I think that Giannis has got a chip on his shoulder for a few reasons. I think them making fun of his free throw shooting and, all of a sudden, he's not the best player in the game or one of the best players. So I think he's got a little bit to prove here. It's hard to get back to the NBA Finals, there's no guarantee. Ask the Toronto Raptors and some of these other teams, Miami from last year, it's hard to get there. So I think that both these teams want to make the most of this opportunity, but the Bucks definitely looked starving. Looked like they were hungry on Sunday night. So we'll see what happens. All right, let's shift gears. NBA, the MLB All-Star Game. So I think this All-Star Game is still special, and I thought that it had picked up some momentum these last few years, but I didn't like that there was so many players that bowed out this year, and even my own guy. And I kind of want to say I understood, but there were other players that had like very minor injuries that seemed to back out. I couldn't imagine as a player if I got chosen to an All-Star game in any sport that I wouldn't want to go. That means that you're like one of the best. But what was it, like 10, 15 players that bowed out? That's a lot of players.
Yeah. What I saw too, because they were playing them this weekend, so it was kind of like the Yankee conspiracy theories coming out. But Correa and Altuve both were named to the All-Star game and are choosing not to play. Altuve, apparently it's a leg issue, but then like after he was named, he legged out an infield single. So I don't really think that that's the case. Some people are saying maybe the reason why because they are afraid that they're going to get booed, which I mean, really to me, like if that's going to happen, that's completely on you. But I understand DeGrom too, to an extent. So I kind of feel like this is DeGrom's year. Same way that it's like Shohei Ohtani's year. He's in the home run derby. He's starting pitcher, and then he's also batting first as the DH. So he's doing it all. But I think what it's so like Ohtani could be a very good Hall of Fame caliber player, but like everyone will look at this year as like the year that he established that.
Yeah.
Jacob DeGrom, I think at this point is already a surefire Hall of Famer, but like this has been his year. Like this is his like Kirk Gibson 68 type year. And I think missing the All-Star game, like I said, I understand it. You want to stay healthy. I think of I was just talking with Trevor about Judge in 2017 doing the home run derby, and he just wasn't after that. So like, yeah, you don't want to get hurt in an exhibition, but still, I think that.
Yeah, DeGrom. I'm glad you brought up Bob Gibson because, and I know DeGrom has been hurt, legitimately hurt, right? He missed a couple of starts, but Bob Gibson would have never. Oh.
So I'm glad you brought up Bob Gibson in 68. And I don't mean to compare, but there's been, to your point, there's been, Sandy Koufax, Gibson 68, Ron Guidry in 78, Pedro Martinez 2003, Clayton Kershaw even, I think, in 2012. I mean, there's been these guys that have just had these spectacular years that, Randy Johnson even, that, they got to go to the All-Star game. Bob Gibson would never back out on something like that. I totally get DeGrom. He's my guy. But again, I'm just thinking about the 7, 8, 9-year-old kid that is living in Wichita, Kansas, that only sees DeGrom, on maybe a random ESPN game or something like that, and he'd want to see him pitch. So, but that goes for all these players, man. The Houston fans, I think Altuve and Correa are doing them certainly a disservice. And I'll say DeGrom to an extent is doing not just the New York fans, but I think all the fans a little bit of a disservice, especially the young kids. And I'm sure knowing his character, he doesn't mean to. I think he just legitimately feels that, this is the right thing to do. All right. But, the real important part is I need to hear your first top All-Star game and moment. Hit me.
Oh, first. Okay. I have
It doesn't have to be your number one, just whatever.
Well, I guess I'll start with the most recent for me. Well, okay. Well, most recent, 2019 was fun. We had just gotten home from the hospital with Isaac, and it was also in Cleveland. We got to take the kids to a couple of the festivities they had. Like they didn't call it the Fan Fest, but some of the interactive stuff. So that was a lot of fun. But I think also for me, 2013, when it was at Citi Field, seeing Mariano Rivera come out there for the last time in the 8th inning, which it was weird that it was the 8th inning, but it kind of made sense. So I think that was one of my bigger ones.
Yeah. And we went to the festivities that year too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That
I think I actually bought a shirt there, if I remember right.
And we have a picture somewhere of us. Lael was pretty young,
Oh yeah, she went there.
I remember how hot it was, and we walked all the way to the east side, west side, and then back to the east side, and it was like 95 degrees outside at least.
Yeah,
that was a good one. All right, I'll give you one of mine. 1971, and that was. I can remember being angry that the National League lost because I was such a big Met fan, and so I had to root for the National League. But there was 6 home runs in that game, way before the home run era. But listen to the Hall of Famers that hit home runs: Johnny Bench, Hank Aaron, I think that was Hank Aaron's first and only All-Star home run. Al Kaline for his hometown Detroit. Game was in Detroit. Harmon Killebrew, Roberto Clemente, and Reggie Jackson all homered in
Wow.
that game. And Reggie Jackson's home run almost left the stadium and hit the light tower. You know, they didn't really measure the home runs back then, but they estimated it was over 500 feet. He hit it off a pitcher named Doc Ellis of the Pirates. It was an exciting game. National League had firepower that came off the bench in the 8th and 9th inning, but they couldn't do anything against the American League pitching. The American League wound up winning 6-4. And back then, it was a very rare All-Star game win for the American League. But it's just a memorable game because all these Hall of Famers hit home runs. You know.
Yeah.
All right, give me another one from you.
Let's see. Because I have several.
Okay.
I'll go with one. I remember the first one that I actually stayed up for, which would be 2000. Ironically, because this year the controversy there, but that one was in Atlanta. I remember distinctly like going through and keeping track of all the people when they would come in and out and like mess up the batting order because of all like the triple switches and stuff. But then also it became one of the more well-known signature moments for a guy named Derek Jeter, who he won the MVP and became still to this day the only player to win both MVP in the All-Star game and the World Series in the same year. And then also that was a fun one, I think, just because I remember it was like the first time like I stayed up for the whole thing. Because I remember a little bit of 99 with like Pedro, but also I knew I had to go to bed, so I didn't really watch a ton of that one. But 2000, I think part of the reason why, and that was something I did for years, is like keeping track of like the All-Star game, was it was a way that I could stay up and kind of keep myself from falling asleep. So that one I think always will stick out to me just because of the significance there. And then I remember from doing that, 2001, I don't think I realized the significance of Cal Ripken in his last one. And then A-Rod switching positions with him. A-Rod was the stud that year, of course, completely juiced up, but no one knew at the time. So it just didn't matter.
Larissa and I thought you were absolutely nuts keeping score on the All-Star game. You know, you kept score randomly in other regular season games, but the All-Star game you had everything there. Like, did you catch all that? You're like, wait, no, who's in left field now? Because you know I do like that they try to play at least all the position players. You know, I only have one other one. I have two more. I'll give you one other. 1984 in San Francisco, a 19-year-old Dwight Gooden, 19 years old, comes in and he strikes out the side. And I don't remember the guys he struck out, but they were three really great players. And he comes in and strikes it. It's similar to what DeGrom did a few years ago. And Gary Carter, though, was the catcher. That was memorable for me because you know, Gary Carter started as catcher, Keith Hernandez at first base, Darryl Strawberry in right field. But when Gooden came in, it was electric. And I remember, you know, the announcers, which it was probably an ABC game, so it was probably Al Michaels, just like was stunned because you know they had heard of Dwight Gooden, but that was a year before his really great year in '85. But he was unbelievable. It was a moment for me. I'll give you another quick one. 1979. You've heard me talk about this before. At the Kingdome in Seattle, Lee Mazzilli hits a pinch hit 3-run homer off Ron Guidry to tie the game. It was 6-3. He tied the game in like the 7th inning. Lee Mazzilli was the only Met chosen. Comes up to pinch hit. I'm like, he's not even going to play in the field, but they put him in the outfield. But he hits the opposite field 3-run homer. It was so unlikely. And we just went nuts. I remember I was watching it with a few friends, and we just went crazy. And then he drew a walk in, and I want to say the 9th inning. But he didn't get the MVP. Dave Parker got the MVP because he threw two guys out at home plate. He made these spectacular throws to home plate, and we were mad that Mazzilli should have gotten the MVP at a tying 3-run homer, and then he drew a walk with the bases loaded to put them ahead, and the National League won 7-6. All right, give me another one.
Well, actually, Dave Parker, he didn't get a hit in that game, right?
I don't think he got a hit. I think that's a good trivia question. I don't think he got a hit. He got the MVP. Yeah. Well, I think he threw a guy out at third on the fly, and he threw a guy out at home on the fly. He had a spectacular arm.
Because I believe he is one of only two guys to win the MVP for the All-Star game and without getting a hit.
Well, who's the other?
I was gonna ask you. I actually know who the other one is. He kind of did something similar. I believe when he did this, it was with the Rays. But he's more well known for having a really bad contract.
Is that Carl Crawford?
Yep.
Okay.
Carl Crawford, he robbed Barry Bonds of what would have been a game-tying home run. Like 2008 or something like that. Somewhere, well, not 2008, but somewhere around that.
I thought didn't he hit a big home run in an All-Star game as well, Crawford?
I think
probably
so.
Wasn't that one, obviously. Okay. That's a good one.
I'll give my last two here.
Okay.
2008, at the old Yankee Stadium. A few things stick out. Obviously, us going to the Fan Fest, even though we couldn't do as much because you were just getting kind of sick there. But that's one of those moments that really sticks with me, is that like you were still willing to even go. But then also the pregame ceremony with like pretty much every single living Hall of Famer on the field at the time.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
And each one, like all the first basemen that were like longtime All-Stars were standing next to the starting first baseman.
Yeah.
Who I don't even know who that would be in 2008, but like that. And then also the game was absolutely spectacular. I remember you fell asleep in like the 10th or 11th inning,
I did.
But still to this day, the longest All-Star game by innings. And ironically, the Red Sox, JD Drew hitting the game winner in the bottom of the 15th.
Wow.
It also was an interesting one because that's when they implemented the rule of like pitchers who start on the Sunday before can't pitch in the All-Star game, because Scott Kazmir was placed in the 15th because they ran out of other pitchers. Even though Madden said, please do not throw him at all. So that's one. And then one that I think you knew I was going to talk about would be 2003, when I went with you up to New England for your trip. And then we went to that All-Star game in like Connecticut, the AA, where guys like Phil Hughes and I believe Cheng-Ming Wang were in that game.
You said Ryan Howard was in
obviously
that game too. Yeah.
What's that?
I think you said that Ryan Howard was in that game as well.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. Ryan Howard was in that game.
Yeah.
And then also that was the year of the American League can't win this if it's late, with John Smoltz, Billy Wagner, and Eric Gagne. And sure enough, Hank Blaylock's 3-run home run gives the American League the win off of Eric Gagne. So
yeah.
But I think what's interesting too is, if you remember right, Hank Blaylock didn't win the MVP that year.
Right.
Even though he had like the biggest hit out of all of them.
Yeah.
That one went to Garrett Anderson. And also that was the first year that it actually counted.
Right.
Where they did the home field advantage because of the debacle in 2002. So that one always sticks out to me as well.
Yeah. Those are some good players that you named too that have kind of gotten forgotten. Garrett Anderson was a really good player, but Hank Blaylock, if you look his stats up, he had a couple of just spectacular years, man. All right, I'll give you my last one. It's the one that I remember first, and it still is one of the best All-Star games, 1970. That was the Pete Rose bowling over Ray Fosse game.
Oh yeah.
But the National League was just so determined. American League takes a 4-1 lead into the ninth inning, and the National League rallies to tie it up. Roberto Clemente hits a sacrifice, sends Frank Robinson to the wall. It's a sacrifice fly to tie the game up with 2 outs in the ninth, and then the game goes into the 12th, and Jim Hickman gets a big base hit. Amos Otis is in center field. Here comes Pete Rose around third. Amos Otis, perfect throw to the plate. The ball gets there same time. Ray Fosse is the catcher. Rose just bowls him over. Fosse's career was never the same. He was a really up-and-coming guy. He had a good long career, but he never was the same after he broke his shoulder. That was probably the worst injury in the All-Star game. But it was the epitome of showing Pete Rose on, and I never liked Pete Rose because he used to kill the Mets, but certainly give his props. He was just a spectacular player and hustler. But even in the All-Star game, he's like, I definitely got to score. And but I remember also in the 11th inning, I think Rod Carew and Tony Oliva hit a double up the gap. The American League had like runners on first and third. And Joe Morgan was still with the Astros at the time. And someone hit a shot, looked like it was going to center field. Morgan gets it. He flips it to Bud Harrelson at shortstop, and National League pulls off a spectacular double play to keep the game tied. It was just a great game. I don't know how I stayed up at 10 years old. That was the first game that my mom, let me stay up for. And I stayed up for the whole thing. I was just so excited. I'm sure it ended late because it went 12 innings,
Yeah.
So it should be fun. You're gonna watch with Pete and Lael and Isaac. You're gonna make Isaac stay up at 2 years old, though.
Maybe if Aaron Judge can hit in the first inning, then maybe.
Yeah, maybe you can see the first inning. All right. Well, this has been fun. All-Star memories. This should be still a great game, and players should be proud to play in it. Were you looking up Blaylock stats?
I was. It was. Here we go.
Yeah, grab a couple of his best years. I mean, that guy he could hit. And I don't know what happened to him. It seemed like he retired quickly or something.
Yeah, so let's see here. 2003. He ended up hitting 300 with 29 home runs, 90 RBIs.
Right.
Had 170 hits.
170 hits.
Yeah. And I mean, this is a pretty good year there.
Yeah.
His OPS was 872, so that's really good. Yeah. 2004, which he was an all-star again that year. 276, 32 home runs, 110 RBIs.
Yeah.
2005, 318, 25, and 92. You love those numbers.
Yeah.
And I'll go another 2006, 266, 16 home runs, 89 RBIs. Kind of seems like that 3-year stretch where he had like 25 plus home runs.
Yeah.
Seems to be like
Texas
was really good then.
Texas had a bomb squad there for a while with Juan Gonzalez and Josh Hamilton and Blaylock. Yeah. And who's the other guy that retired recently?
Michael Young.
Michael Young was really good. He was a really good player. And Ian, the second baseman, he bounced around.
Ian Kinsler.
He was really good. Those guys were all-stars every year too. Kinsler, Young, they had a good. It was surprising that they couldn't get over the hump, Texas back then. I know they got to the World Series a couple of times later, but in those early thousands teams, they just didn't have any pitching. If they had just a couple of good pitchers, I mean, because they definitely were outslugging a lot of people. Anyway, we got way off the topic, but it's all good. So let's get the music on, and Kenny, take us home.
I'll just point this out. Michael Young, he had also a very big hit. That was against the Padres closer, whose name is escaping me. But anyway.
Trevor Hoffman.
I kept wanting to say Troy Percival.
Yeah.
So enjoy the All-Star game tomorrow. But for now, this is Kenny Squared N
Kenny,
with Sports on the Positive Tip. We will see you guys next week.
absolutely. Talk to you later.